McJuggerNuggets. Growing up, this channel was my go-to, and I watched all of the vlogs and Psycho series videos when I was in middle school. This was also the peak of the McJuggerNuggets channel, and it seemed like everyone on the internet was tuning in for their semi-regular fix of rage and destruction. But now that it's been a long time since the Psycho series has ended, and I've also gotten older, I wanted to look back at the Psycho series and examine what made it so special. How was a New Jersey family able to captivate audiences from around the world? And how did they keep us reeled in for so long? In this retrospective, I'll look back at the Psycho series and try to answer why it worked. A lot of people like to think of the Psycho series as just a set of YouTube videos or vlogs, but in reality, this was a full-on show. I know when most of us hear the term show, our mind jumps to something that's commercially made, like something we would find on Netflix or on TV. But the Psycho series encapsulated all of the drama, continuity, and theater of a show on the much more accessible platform that is YouTube. To understand what started this craze around seeing family members destroy things on YouTube, we have to go a bit further back than McJuggerNuggets. The first channel that really popularized and made known the desire of audiences to see absolute rage was Wafflepone in 2009. The video titled Greatest Freakout Ever showcased that many people on YouTube enjoyed watching others get angry. The only thing missing from Wafflepone's videos was a continuous narrative. You had the family members as recurring characters, and of course, Steven was the main character, but Wafflepone was missing that unbroken, steady narrative that fully reels in the audience and adds a much greater significance to each meaningful event. The Psycho series from McJuggerNuggets captivated the same audience who were tuning into Wafflepone's videos, with both channels being centered around destruction and freakouts, but what differentiated McJuggerNuggets was that his channel understood the importance of narrative. People need storylines. Sure, we enjoy watching destruction, but how much better is destruction when you know the story behind it? With the daily vlogs that McJuggerNuggets was uploading, you could see the build-up leading from each destruction video to the next, and it was also incredibly interesting seeing the immediate fallout after a grandiose video such as Psycho Dad Raid Stream, for example. These vlogs allowed for a backstory, and subsequently fans could be much more immersed in the life of Jesse Ridgway. This was a crucial barrier that had to be broken to fully engage the audience, and McJuggerNuggets pulled this off perfectly. I also want to add on to this narrative perspective of the Psycho series by talking about another industry that I believe has some deep similarities. One of the closest parallels to the Psycho series is the business of professional wrestling. I loved watching the WWF and its later iteration, the WWE, growing up, and I remember for a long time, especially when I was a kid, people didn't know whether it was real or not. Looking back now, it's pretty obvious that it was fake, since nobody actually fights like that. But back in the early 2000s, when you didn't know for sure, and you saw these wrestlers getting actual injuries and suffering real pain, you didn't know for sure, and that was a massive part of the appeal. Once the WWE came out as being sports entertainment, then that appeal disappeared, as now the curtain was gone, and you knew that the outcome was determined before the contest. The Psycho series is similar in that the viewership to the McJuggerNuggets channel was peaking when we didn't know whether his videos were real or not. Obviously, looking back now as an adult, it's pretty obvious they are fake, but when I was a naive middle schooler, I wasn't entirely sure, and I love that I didn't know. This aspect of not knowing whether something is real or not was undoubtedly a huge part of the success behind the Psycho series and professional wrestling. And the term that I've personally ascribed to this phenomenon is Schrödinger's theater. I call it that because both of these shows are undoubtedly theater, but in the moment, you don't know for sure whether it's real or not, and that uncertainty keeps you hooked. While we're on the topic of professional wrestling, we can also go back to the importance of narrative and storytelling. Professional wrestling really had something special when it gave you unique storylines that added much more significance to each match that happened in the ring. And these storylines made the matches much more captivating overall. Could you watch wrestling without knowing the storylines and still have a good time? Yes, absolutely. But knowing the story behind the contenders undoubtedly made the matches much more interesting, and this was part of the formula for wrestling's success. Even now with the UFC, which is real fighting, you can see the promotion always releasing their embedded videos leading up to a fight or doing press conferences in advance to add to the storyline behind the fight cards. Even the fighters will regularly release statements and trash talk to draw more attention to their fights. This speaks to the importance of storytelling, as audiences have a much greater attachment to whatever it is they are watching when they have a story behind it. Wafflepone didn't really capitalize on the storytelling aspect at all, but McJuggerNuggets did, and this heavily paid off for his channel, both literally and figuratively. The success of the Psycho series was also a combination of being in the right place at the right time. The Psycho series took off before the advent of TikTok and shorter content becoming much more popular, and during the time in which the Psycho series was at its peak, vlogs, let's plays, and pranks ruled YouTube. The Psycho series is, in a way, a culmination of these three genres. In regards to Let's Plays, Jesse's main fascination is video games, and he even occasionally streamed on Twitch. The main content McJuggerNuggets released was vlogs, and these came out daily. The freakouts and the appeal of pranks going wrong was always there in the Psycho series. There's even prank videos in the Psycho series, and these pranks almost always go wrong. And this directly incorporates the success of this YouTube subgenre into the Psycho series. The Psycho series being able to channel all of these genres into itself allowed the show to be accessible to a wide array of audiences across YouTube, and this further propelled the series' success. Now let's talk about the Psycho series' merits as a show. The plot of the Psycho series was relatable. It's all about dealing with adulthood and having to accept that your childhood is over. You still have that optimism, those hopes and dreams from your adolescence, but you have to accept that you have to live a lifestyle that you don't want to live. Jesse wants to make it big as a streamer, which was and still is a common fantasy for many, but he has to face the fact that he's not a kid anymore and that he has to deal with adulthood. The Psycho series offers a common dilemma where Jesse's parents seem to be practical but also outdated with their approach to the world. They offer some extremely sensible advice to Jesse to get a job as they want their son to be financially independent. But even when Jesse makes good money off the internet, his father refuses to entertain that career path at all. This is a relatable problem that many people face, especially now with more and more people opting for unconventional ways to make money. There's also moments of foreshadowing throughout the series with smaller details and lines of dialogue coming into play later on in the series. This further adds on to the legitimacy of this series as a show. The Psycho series also has a great balance with its characters. The show offers crazy characters, but it also balances them out by offering grounded counterparts who are extremely likable. Psycho Dad's antithesis is Jesse's mom. For all of Uncle Chris's craziness, you have the relaxed and nurturing role model in Uncle Larry. Jeffrey's untrustworthy character is balanced out for Jesse by having an extremely loyal best friend in Korn. The yin and yang of the characters goes on, but the Psycho series undoubtedly gives some extremely captivating characters. If Jesse bores or annoys you, you always have an additional character to divert your attention to. The characters each represent a different archetype, and the ways they play off each other is extremely entertaining to watch, especially when they reach their boiling points and you see the unstoppable forces meeting the immovable objects. The next aspect of the Psycho series that I will talk about is the acting itself. Honestly, considering that nobody in this series is trained in theater except for Jesse, they do a great job in their performances. Psycho Dad specifically does a great job, and so does the mother. Uncle Larry isn't bad either, and Jesse plays the whiny, spoiled brat he is supposed to play to perfection. Jeffrey's character is a bit odd at times, but considering he's meant to be the snarky, condescending gesture of the show, his acting fulfills this role. The side characters also give very good performances, and keep in mind that I'm approaching this from the angle that none of them are trained actors. Sure, sometimes the acting may be over the top, but are we not tuning in to see anger in its rawest form? Considering this was a YouTube series that's main purpose was to show increasingly enraged episodes of destruction, I would say that the acting perfectly accompanied the subject matter, with each of the characters being able to channel that frustration and psychotic lashing out that their characters needed. While we are talking about the characters and their performances, I want to take a moment to focus on Psycho Dad. His performance and character steals every scene he is in, and he holds the show on his back. Psycho Dad is the reason why most of us kept watching the show, and every single moment with him is incredibly tense, and it feels like you're watching an old school drill sergeant. Again, considering that he's not an actor, he does a superb job, and even looking back now, his character is actually really believable. I know plenty of dads who are old-fashioned and believe in tough love, and so Psycho Dad's character is not some extremely far-fetched take on a father. He has realistic demands and expectations for his son, and this further adds to the authenticity of his character. I really don't think Psycho Dad gets enough credit sometimes, especially considering that he wasn't a trained actor, yet he was able to be the backbone of the show and put on a believable performance. The last thing I will talk about is the format of the Psycho series. There's something really special about this story being told in the style of vlogs. Of course, I brought up earlier that this format was incredibly popular at this time, but this vlogging style also adds on to the deep connection between Jesse and his viewers. This is almost a breaking of the fourth wall, where we get to see Jesse being his true self, and we can sympathize with his perspective. This story really could not have been told in any other way, as the believability of the Psycho series is deeply rooted in its format. I mean, just imagine if the Psycho series was told through security cameras or with a hidden cameraman like some shows. It would lose that illusion of authenticity that really allows the show to flourish. The vlogs play a pivotal role in establishing the continuity that the series thrives on, but also in relaying the story in the most raw and natural form as possible, as the audience is right alongside Jesse when he experiences the events of the show. The last thing I will say about the format is that occasionally McJuggerNuggets would have his Psycho Destruction episodes go live, and this further added to the feeling that this was real. The family would rehearse what was going to happen before going live, but nonetheless, this was an incredibly risky move by the channel. Just imagine if something went wrong, or if their characters somehow slipped and made a mistake. Then the whole illusion of authenticity would come crashing down on the Psycho series. I have a deep respect for McJuggerNuggets for doing this, since he had non-trained actors improvising off each other in real time with a live audience, all while trying to convince the world that the freakout happening was real and not staged. This is a risk that his channel didn't have to take, as he was already getting great views from his other videos. But going live added to the Psycho series feeling real, as it seems like such a big gamble for a fake show to do. Even though he didn't go live often, the few times he did, McJuggerNuggets left us with extremely memorable moments, and this was perfect for the facade of his channel. Overall, the Psycho series was able to transcend the informality of its YouTube platform by having extensive commonality with other media that prioritize drama and storytelling. The Psycho series came out in the perfect time, and the show's success can largely be attributed to being in the right place at the right time. The merits of the series are also nothing to gloss over, as the characters and deeply intimate storytelling format of vlogging play into the connection and retention of the audience. The Psycho series may come off as cheap storytelling to some, as its high points are just moments of destruction paired with an over-the-top ending, but considering the resources that the real filmmaker and Jesse Ridgway had to work with, you have to give him credit for making the most out of it. I was hooked on the Psycho series when it came out, and so were millions of other people, and this is incredibly impressive when you consider that the Psycho series is essentially a small budget family production on YouTube. So while it may be fake, you can't look at the accolades and tell me the Psycho series was not great. Thank you, McJuggerNuggets and the PsychoCast, for subjecting yourselves to years of this act for our entertainment, and for showing us that storytelling isn't just limited to million-dollar studios or big-name directors. While it may be over, I think I speak for all of us when I say we won't forget the Psycho series.